Long before there ever was a Caucasian on this 196,940,000 square miles of land and water, black people have been inhabiting this earth not just for thousands of years or just hundreds of thousands of years, not even for just millions of years or just billions of years, but trillions of years black people have lived here. This can be true if we are to search for the birth record of the black race. There is no birth record or the beginning record of the black race. Each and every human fossil that has been discovered in trying to search for the human origin, all of them leads to Africa, dated back millions of years ago, and for sure these fossils must have parents still hiding in the grave somewhere, yet to be discovered by those whose interest is always to discover things that others have covered because they are new on this planet Earth that has the weight of 6 trillion tons, traveling at a prolific speed of 1,037.25 miles per second, caused by the light of the sun when striking at the center of the Earth called equator, while rotating on its own axis, causing the day and night. With all this infinite black history, February, the shortest month out of all the 12 months in our calendar, was given to us by the enslaver, dedicated as Black History Month in honor of our infinite history, while Christopher Columbus and the other white missionaries brainwashes the brains of every black children in this white dominated education system each and every single day of the year. This is done to slowly but surely replace the black true story by slavery history, thereby making the whole world believe that our history only began in slavery, when indeed slavery was the beginning of our suffering. I am the African teacher. Stay with me as we are about to expose some of the lies taught in religion and also our school system. According to white people, African history began with the arrival of Africans to North America in the 16th and 17th centuries. Former Spanish slaves who had been freed by Francis Drake arrived aboard the Golden Hind at New Albion in California in 1579. The European colonization of America and the resulting transatlantic slave trade led to a large-scale transportation of enslaved Africans across the Atlantic. Roughly 10 to 12 million Africans who were sold by the Barbary slave trade either to European slavery or to servitude in America. Approximately 388,000 of them landed in the north corner of America. After arriving in various European colonies in North America, the enslaved Africans were sold to white colonialists, primarily to work on cash crop plantations. A group of enslaved Africans arrived in the English colony of Virginia in 1619, marking the beginning of slavery in the colonial history of the United States of America. By 1776, roughly 20% of the British North American population was of African descent, both free and enslaved. This is the only part of history that the education system put much emphasis on, leaving the whole world in darkness of ignorance as far as black history is concerned. Many lies have been told about us, much knowledge has been hidden away from us, and many great black stories have been copied from us, changed and painted them white, preventing us from realizing how great our people were, because if we do, then we will no longer look at ourselves as inferior again, but superior as our great forefathers were. From the libraries, we were taught that the Greek civilization marked the beginning of the world civilization. Yet they know that long before the Greek civilization was the Nubian civilization, the Ethiopian civilization, and also the Egyptian civilization. In the textbooks of those studying medicine, it is written that Hippocrates is the father of medicine, yet a man known as Imhotep in Egypt practiced medicine 2,500 years before Hippocrates himself was born. The Hatshepsut papyrus, which dealt with Planned Parenthood 1500 years ago before the birth of Jesus Christ. These are records that are in the pyramids and temples of Egypt, which cannot be promoted because if they do, white supremacy will fall. Religion has told us about the Immaculate Conception and Virgin Birth. Humanity began with Adam and Eve. According to religion, the man called Cain who slew his brother Abel. We have been told that these things only happened once, but we have never been told that these are just copies of our stories that predated them with thousands of years, which took place in our black holy land, Egypt, where our wise ancestors recorded every bit of our story in the tombs, temples, and pyramids. In the temple of Set I in Abydos, not only is there the writings of an Immaculate Conception 4,000 years before the virgin birth story of Mary, but it is there in picture form. No way that the theologians of religions never took a trip to Egypt to see all these things where they are coming from. In the same temple, we see the story of how Set-Typhon murdered his brother Osiris 2,000 years before the Jewish story of Cain and Abel. They told us about an African man named Moses, born in the city of Goshen in Egypt, receiving the 10 Commandments at Mount Sinai. Lies. There was no Moses receiving no 10 Commandments at Mount Sinai that were not written before in Egypt, when in the temple of Ramesses VI are the 10 Commandments plus 32 more, which are called 42 negative confessions, listed 2,000 years before the birth of Moses. If Moses was born in Egypt, educated in the Egyptian system, and worshipped the god Amen-Ra, how is it possible that he never came across these 42 admonitions of Ma'at when he was in Egypt? That is totally impossible. Moses, who was charged with murder in Egypt, and his brother Aaron was charged with theft 40 years before reaching Mount Sinai. How is it possible that they never knew thou shalt not steal and thou shalt not kill? What about the first known Bible called the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which was written in Egypt thousands of years before the Holy Bible, where the stories that we find in the Bible were copied from? The first university in the whole entire Europe was built by Africans called the Black Moors at what is called the University of Salamanca in Spain, with the education system which was nothing but a copy of University of Sankore, which later the French named Timbuktu in Mali, the world's first known university. With the suppression mentality, we were never told that in Italy the man called Alessandro de' Medici, nicknamed Il Moro due to his dark complexion, Duke of Peni and the first Duke of the Florentine Republic, was an African born in Italy. Roman emperors from Africa such as Septimus Severus and his son Caracalla ruled Italy, but this looks so embarrassing to them to tell us. They painted a picture that black history started with slave trade and fails to explain how slave trade started. Black people have been blamed for initiating slavery by selling black people to Europeans, when they know that slavery started with the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church by the name of Martin V, and that the first Africans to be enslaved were not taken from Africa but Spain, carried all the way to Haiti, the then called Hispaniola, in 1506 under the command of the Pope of Rome. So embarrassing, I guess, to let us know. Africans called the the Moors ruled Spain from 711 AD up until 1485, and that the last of them lost power at the place called Granada. Not the half of this had we been told. Let me remind the whole world that even the paper we write on shows the black heritage and history, as it is the Egyptians who invented papyrus, which later became a paper. If you are really concerned about our story, why you've never told us that it was African engineers who changed the flow of the Nile River by shaping the S shape of the Nile in 2250 BC? No Jesus was born yet, no Adam and Eve yet. African engineers doing hydrographic engineering led by Sosostris II long before the birth of the first Jew called Abraham. There are 72 pyramids spread across Egypt, the first one designed, engineered and built by the multi-genius man Imhotep in the 3rd dynasty, and the last pyramid was built in the 6th dynasty, while the first Jewish man called Abraham was born in the 13th dynastic period, 1760 BC. So which Jews built the Egyptian pyramids? Talking about the Jewish Holocaust, what about the Black Holocaust that is still happening today? 15 million Africans were murdered by John Cecil Rhodes in South Africa, and derogatory you still give African scholarship in honor of John Cecil Rhodes. What an insult! African women pregnant were placed before Cecil Rhodes with horses tied to each of their legs. Beat the horses hard to run in the opposite direction and tear the pregnant woman into 2 parts, forcing the unborn child out of her mother's womb as punishment that the African men should see. This is not mentioned in any book as Holocaust, only because it was African people murdered. Why only making noise about the Jewish Holocaust? Leopold II killed 22 million black people in what is now called Congo. You don't see that as a Holocaust. In Tasmania, every last African was murdered. Until today, this has never been regarded as a Holocaust. Africans made the first calendar in 10,000 BC called the stellar calendar and revised that in 4100 BC. Where was Greece by then? But you can stand before Africans and tell them that civilization started with Greece. Black men dealt with astronomy, the movement of stars and planets, long before there was any continent called Europe. How come you said civilization started with Greece? What about the romantic story of Pharaoh Ramesses II, who do not only build his temple but also the temple of his beautiful wife Nefertari? Because if you tell us this, we will know that an African man can also care about an African woman. Lalibela in Ethiopia rock-fumed temples constructed thousands of years before any country existed in all of Europe. Why not giving us credit for all these achievements? If Martin Luther King knew his black history, he could have not gone to Mahatma Gandhi to learn about the concept of non-violence, because he would have discovered that Mahatma Gandhi read the works of Akhenaten. Akhenaten died preaching about monotheism, the concept of the one God, 3,000 years before Moses married Jesus and John. All these great achievements by Africans that has nothing to do with slavery will never be told simply because it is not slavery.